There's a moment every man experiences at least once, and if you're honest, probably more than once. You're talking to a woman, maybe texting her, maybe seeing her in person, and something feels off. She's there, but not really there. She responds, but without energy. She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. And you start doing what most men do in that situation. You overthink, you rationalize, you make excuses for her behavior, and you tell yourself, maybe she's just busy, or maybe she's going through something. But deep down, you already know the truth. You just don't want to accept it. So let me be very clear with you, not to hurt you, but to wake you up. When a woman is not interested in you, she will show you. Not always loudly, not always directly, but consistently. And if you don't understand the signs, you'll end up chasing something that was never there to begin with. This is not about blaming women. This is not about turning you bitter. This is about giving you clarity, because clarity is power. The kind of power that protects your time, your energy, and your self-respect. And if you're willing to listen without ego, without defensiveness, you're going to start seeing patterns you've ignored before. You're going to recognize behaviors that used to confuse you. And more importantly, you're going to stop investing in situations that drain you. So if you're ready for that level of honesty, make sure you're subscribed, because what we talk about here isn't surface-level attraction advice. This is about understanding human behavior, mastering your emotional discipline, and becoming the kind of man who doesn't need to chase, because he sees clearly. Let's get into it. 1. She keeps you in the background. When a woman is not interested in you, she doesn't necessarily cut you off completely. That would require confrontation, and many people, not just women, avoid confrontation when they can. Instead, she keeps you around in a low-effort, low-priority position. You become the guy she replies to when she's bored, the conversation she revisits when there's nothing better happening, the option that sits quietly in the background of her life. This is where a lot of men get trapped, because technically she's still there. She hasn't blocked you. She hasn't told you to leave her alone. So you interpret her presence as potential, as possibility. You think, if she wasn't interested at all, she wouldn't respond, right? And that's where you start lying to yourself. But interest is not measured by occasional replies. Interest is measured by consistency, effort, and intentionality. When a woman truly wants you, you won't feel like you're waiting for your turn in her life. You won't feel like you're competing for basic attention. Think about what Marcus Aurelius said about self-respect and perception. He believed that we suffer more from our interpretations than from reality itself. And right now, your interpretation might be the thing keeping you stuck. You're interpreting her minimal effort as hidden interest, when in reality, it's simply convenience. Ask yourself this honestly. If you stopped texting her today, would she genuinely notice your absence, or would you quietly disappear from her world without impact? Because that answer tells you everything. And here's the truth most men avoid. Staying in the background doesn't make you patient, it makes you invisible. And the longer you accept that role, the harder it becomes to step out of it. 2. Her effort feels forced, not natural. There's a certain ease that comes with genuine interest. When a woman likes you, she doesn't have to remind herself to respond. She doesn't have to calculate whether she should engage. It flows. The conversation moves. There's energy behind her words. But when she's not interested, everything feels slightly off. Her replies are delayed, not because she's always busy, but because you're not a priority. Her messages feel short, not because she has nothing to say, but because she doesn't feel compelled to invest. Even when she does engage, it can feel like she's doing it out of politeness rather than desire. And you can sense it. That's the frustrating part. You feel the lack of enthusiasm, but instead of trusting that feeling, you try to override it. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You tell yourself to be patient. You tell yourself she just needs time. But forced effort has a very specific texture. It lacks warmth. It lacks spontaneity. It feels like obligation. Seneca once talked about how valuable time is and how we should be careful about who we allow to occupy it. Now flip that idea. If someone truly values you, they won't treat time with you like an obligation. They'll treat it like something they want more of. So let me ask you something that might sting a little. When you talk to her, does it feel like she's choosing you or tolerating you? Because those are two very different experiences, and confusing them will cost you more than just time. It will cost you your confidence. And here's the deeper issue. When you accept forced effort, you subconsciously start lowering your standards. You begin to believe that this is what attention looks like, that this is what connection feels like, and that belief will follow you into every future interaction. You don't want that. You want to be the kind of man who recognizes genuine energy and walks away from anything that feels forced, because you understand your value doesn't need to be negotiated. The problem is, most men don't walk away. They lean in harder. They try to compensate. They try to win her over. But attraction doesn't grow from pressure. It grows from desire. And if that desire isn't there naturally, no amount of effort on your part will create it. So instead of asking, how can I make her more interested? Start asking, why am I accepting something that clearly isn't? And that shift in perspective, that's where your power begins. 3. She avoids being alone with you. When a woman is genuinely interested in you, she looks for opportunities to create space where the connection can deepen. She wants moments where it's just the two of you, where conversation isn't diluted by distractions, where she can feel your presence more directly. There's an intentional pull toward privacy, not because she's trying to rush anything, but because she values the emotional intimacy that comes from undivided attention. But when she's not interested, she does the opposite. She keeps things in group settings. She suggests bringing friends along. She prefers environments where the focus isn't on the two of you, because being alone with you would create a level of closeness she doesn't feel aligned with. It's not always conscious or calculated. Often it's subtle and consistent. Plans never quite become one-on-one. Timing never quite lines up. There's always a buffer. And here's where men misread the situation. You tell yourself she's just being cautious, or that she needs more time to feel comfortable. You frame her distance as something noble, something that just requires patience on your part. But patience without awareness becomes self-deception. Epictetus taught that we should focus on what is within our control and accept what is not. You cannot control whether she desires closeness with you, but you can control whether you keep placing yourself in situations where that closeness is clearly being avoided. So ask yourself something uncomfortable but necessary. If she truly enjoyed your presence, wouldn't she naturally want more of it, not less? Because attraction doesn't hide from intimacy. It moves toward it. And when someone consistently avoids being alone with you, they're not building tension. They're maintaining distance. And if you ignore that, you end up investing emotionally in a connection that never had the space to grow in the first place. 4. Her words and actions don't align. One of the most confusing experiences for a man is when a woman says things that sound interested but behaves in a way that contradicts those words. She might tell you she's busy but still interested. She might say she enjoys talking to you, yet rarely initiates. She might even give you small compliments, just enough to keep your attention, while her overall behavior remains distant. This creates a mental trap. You cling to her words because they give you hope, and you downplay her actions because they challenge that hope. But the reality is simple. Even if it's uncomfortable, actions are always the truth. Words can be polite, indirect, or even conflicted. Actions are consistent with intent. Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of observing reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. And right now, the reality is in her behavior, not in what she says when you question her. not in what she tells you to keep things smooth, but in what she consistently does. So let me ask you this. If you removed everything she's ever said to you and judged her interest purely on her actions, what conclusion would you come to? That question strips away illusion. It forces you to confront the pattern without emotional bias. And here's the deeper lesson. When you accept misalignment between words and actions, you train yourself to ignore red flags. You start believing that confusion is normal, that mixed signals are part of the process, but they're not. Mixed signals are clear signals, just not the ones you want to hear. A woman who truly wants you will make her intentions clear through consistency. Not perfection, but consistency. And anything less than that is something you need to evaluate, not excuse. 5. She keeps conversations surface level. There's a difference between talking to someone and connecting with them. Surface level conversation is easy. It's safe. It requires no emotional investment. You can talk about random topics, share jokes, even flirt a little, and still remain completely detached underneath it all. When a woman isn't interested, she often keeps things in that safe zone. She responds, she engages just enough, but she doesn't open up. She doesn't ask deeper questions. She doesn't show curiosity about who you are beyond the surface. The conversation never quite evolves into something meaningful. And again, this can confuse you because technically there's interaction. You're not being ignored, but you're also not being invited into her world. Seneca spoke about the importance of meaningful connection and how rare it is to truly know someone. That kind of knowing requires vulnerability, curiosity, and mutual effort. Without those elements, you don't have a connection. You have a distraction. So think about your conversations with her. Do they ever go deeper than the surface? Does she show genuine interest in your thoughts, your values, your experiences? Or does everything stay light, casual, and ultimately forgettable? Because here's the truth. People invest depth where they feel interest. They explore where they feel curiosity. And when that curiosity isn't there, the interaction stays shallow by design. The danger for you is getting comfortable in that shallow space. You start to believe that this is progress, that eventually it will deepen if you just stay consistent. But depth doesn't emerge from one-sided effort. It requires mutual willingness. And if she's not meeting you there, you have to ask yourself why you're still trying to pull her into a level of connection she's clearly not stepping into on her own. 6. She rarely initiates contact. Initiation is one of the clearest indicators of interest, yet it's one of the most ignored by men who are emotionally invested. When a woman likes you, she finds reasons to reach out. It might not always be constant, and it might not always be obvious, but there will be effort from her side to maintain the connection. When she's not interested, that effort disappears. You become the one carrying the interaction. You're the one starting conversations, suggesting plans, keeping things alive, and she responds just enough to keep it going, but never enough to take ownership of it. And this is where ego starts to interfere. You tell yourself you're being persistent, that you're showing leadership, that you're taking initiative as a man. And while initiative is important, there's a difference between leading and chasing. Epictetus would remind you that you should not attach your peace to things outside your control. Her willingness to initiate is outside your control, but your willingness to keep overextending yourself is entirely within it. So here's the question you need to face. If you stopped initiating, would the connection survive or would it quietly fade away? Because a connection that only exists through your effort is not a connection. It's maintenance, and you're the one doing all the work. The longer you stay in that dynamic, the more you reinforce a pattern where your energy is given freely without reciprocation. And over time, that doesn't just affect the situation. It reshapes how you show up in all relationships. You start to believe you have to earn attention instead of attracting it. And that belief will cost you far more than one woman's interest ever could. 7. She cancels or reschedules without real effort to make it up. Life happens, people get busy, plans change. A woman canceling on you once or even twice is not the issue. The issue is what follows after that cancellation. When a woman is genuinely interested in you, she doesn't just cancel and disappear. She feels the need to maintain the connection. She offers an alternative. She suggests another time. She shows you, through her actions, that losing that moment with you matters to her. But when she's not interested, cancellations become a pattern, and more importantly, they come without repair. She'll say she's busy, something came up, or she's tired, and then nothing. No real effort to reschedule. No initiative to make things right. The responsibility quietly shifts back to you, and you find yourself trying again, hoping this time will be different. This is where many men start negotiating with reality. You tell yourself she must be overwhelmed, that her schedule is just chaotic, that she'll make it up eventually. But patterns don't lie. If someone consistently cancels without trying to reconnect, it's not about timing. It's about priority. Seneca warned about wasting time on people who do not value it the same way you do. And that lesson hits hard here, because every time you accept repeated cancellations without accountability, you're telling yourself that your time is flexible, negotiable, and ultimately less important. So ask yourself this. If she truly wanted to see you, would she keep letting those opportunities slip away without trying to reclaim them? Because people make time for what matters. Not perfectly, not always smoothly, but intentionally. And when that intention is missing, you need to stop filling in the gaps with excuses on her behalf. There's also a deeper layer to this. When you keep accepting last-minute cancellations or vague rescheduling, you begin to train people on how to treat you. You show them that your time is always available, always adjustable, always secondary. And once that perception is established, it becomes very difficult to change. Respect is not something you demand verbally. It's something you reinforce through what you tolerate. 8. She shows interest only when you pull away. This one is dangerous because it creates the illusion of attraction where there is none. You start to notice a pattern. When you're fully present, when you're consistent, when you're giving attention, she seems distant. But the moment you step back, the moment you stop texting, stop initiating, stop investing, suddenly she reappears. She checks in. She becomes more responsive. She shows just enough interest to pull you back in. And just like that, you think, this is working. But it's not working the way you think it is. This isn't attraction growing. This is attention being managed. It's the human tendency to notice loss more than presence. When you pull away, you disrupt the dynamic she's grown comfortable with, and she reacts to restore it. Not because she suddenly desires you deeply, but because she notices the absence of attention she was receiving. Marcus Aurelius spoke about the importance of understanding motives, both your own and others. And this is where you need to be brutally honest with yourself. Are you responding to genuine desire, or are you reacting to intermittent validation? Because intermittent attention is one of the most addictive dynamics there is. It keeps you hooked. It keeps you hoping. It keeps you investing just enough to stay in the game, without ever receiving full clarity. So let me challenge you with this. If her interest only appears when you withdraw, is she interested in you or just in the attention you provide? That distinction is everything. A woman who truly values you doesn't need to lose you to show interest. She doesn't operate in cycles of absence and reappearance. Her effort is consistent, not reactive. And if you find yourself stuck in that push and pull dynamic, you need to step back and ask a harder question. Not about her, but about you. Why are you accepting a pattern that only rewards you when you leave? Because that's not connection. That's conditioning. 9. You feel it, but you keep ignoring it. This is the one point that ties everything together, and it's also the one most men try to escape. Because deep down, beneath all the analysis, all the overthinking, all the excuses, you already know. You feel the lack of enthusiasm. You notice the inconsistency. You sense the distance. It's not a mystery. It's an awareness you keep pushing aside because accepting it would force you to let go of the idea you've built in your head. And that idea is powerful. It's not just about her. It's about what she represents, the potential, the connection you imagined, the outcome you hoped for. Letting go of that doesn't just feel like losing her. It feels like losing the version of the future you attached to her. Epictetus taught that suffering often comes from our attachment to things we cannot control. And in this case, it's not just her interest you're trying to control. It's the narrative you've created. But here's the truth you need to face, even if it's uncomfortable. When a woman is genuinely interested in you, you don't feel confused. You don't feel like you're constantly trying to decode her behavior. You don't feel like you're walking on uncertain ground. Clarity is a byproduct of genuine interest. So let me ask you something that requires real honesty. If you stripped away your hope, your assumptions, and your desire for this to work, what would your instincts tell you? Because your instincts are not your enemy. They're your early warning system. And every time you ignore them, you don't just stay in a situation that doesn't serve you, you weaken your ability to trust yourself in the future. And that's the real loss, not her, you, the man who starts doubting his own perception, who second-guesses his own judgment, who becomes dependent on external validation to feel certain. You don't want to become that man. You want to be the man who sees clearly, accepts reality quickly, and moves forward without needing closure from someone who was never fully there to begin with. At the end of the day, this isn't about trying to make a woman like you. It's about recognizing when she doesn't and having the strength to walk away without negotiation. The signs are not complicated, but they do require honesty to accept. When you stop chasing unclear situations and start choosing environments where your presence is valued, everything changes. So take this seriously, respect your time, subscribe if this opened your eyes, and come back ready to keep leveling up.